Hello and welcome to the Amateur Austenite. My name is Frances Duncan. I am an author and the founder of the Jane Austen Society of New Zealand. My special guest today is my sister Paula.
Hello.
And we're going to be discussing chapter 40 of Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. In chapter 40, the Bennet sisters, Elizabeth and Jane, have a heart-to-heart. Jane hears about the proposal from Mr. Darcy and the truth about Mr. Wickham.
Bow, bow, bow. This is quite an incredible chapter, I think. This is the first time I've ever had to take serious notes before we've talked about a chapter, because it's quite dense with information. Not even information, just a whole lot of dialogue where they're sort of working things out, which is quite nice.
I feel for Jane hearing about this. She's obviously quite shocked about everything that's been going on without her knowledge.
Yes, and it's really lovely that Elizabeth holds back from her what Mr. Darcy told Elizabeth about his hand in Mr. Bingley leaving.
Mm.
So she obviously knows her sister well, which is really...
She knows that even though Jane wouldn't want to think anything badly of Darcy, it would prejudice her against him.
Absolutely, and it would really break Jane's heart as well, which is nice.
And why bring up Mr. Bingley when she doesn't have to?
Yeah. I love the fact that in the second chapter, it says, Miss Bennet's astonishment was soon lessened by the strong sisterly partiality which made any admiration of Elizabeth appear perfectly natural. You know, she loves her sister. I love that. But then...
I'm so surprised he proposed to you, but then you are kind of great. So
Yeah.
I do get why you would do that.
Yeah, which is really nice. And straight from there, all surprise was shortly lost in other feelings. So it's a really nice way into the fact that Jane does feel quite deeply, and all the other revelations that happen in this chapter, she really feels, and you hear about that straight away.
I was excited that prejudice appears twice in this chapter, the word.
Yes, yes. Because you were talking, was it the last chapter where it's got both Pride and Prejudice in it?
Yeah, so we win.
Hooray!
This one's where we win. So they're talking about Lizzie's prejudices against Mr. Darcy, which she had been encouraging, and then the general prejudice against Mr. Darcy in the whole neighbourhood, which Lizzie had partaken of.
It's a very good way of kind of ending off almost that theme in the novel, because Elizabeth's feelings for Mr. Darcy change not long after this.
Yeah, I think they're already starting to change, because such a great man coming down to actually say, look, here's the truth about my life and here's some embarrassing things that have happened to me and my family. I think there's no way she could not be touched by that.
Yeah, that's so true. I'm nodding furiously here because that's really true.
Because you can see her nodding.
Yeah. I really liked the expose of Jane, I guess. The way that she sees from Mr. Darcy's point of view quite often. So, first of all, she says... it says, but still more was she grieved for the unhappiness with which her sister's refusal must have given him. So she's thinking from Mr. Darcy's point of view how sad it was for him.
Yeah.
And then consider how much it must increase his disappointment. So she's talking about how it wasn't okay for him to be sure of succeeding, but actually... she's still trying to see from his perspective and saying, well, it must have made it even harder for him to be so sure, which I thought was just really lovely that she is that kind of person. And then she goes on, later on, she says, such a disappointment, and with the knowledge of your ill opinion too. So she's again thinking from Mr. Darcy's perspective, which is just really lovely.
All of this while she's carrying a heartbreak of her own as well. She's still able to think about other people and care about them and what's going on with them. So she keeps herself happy. It says, all of her good sense, all her attention to the feelings of her friends were requisite to check the indulgence of those regrets which must have been injurious to her own health and their tranquillity.
Yeah.
But it does say Jane was not happy.
And she even says Paul Wickham.
Yeah.
You know, she tries so hard to be kind and think of other people all the time.
She's got that lovely bit where she's like, there's something like, what if they're both good people?
Yeah.
They could both be good people. What if there's a misunderstanding?
Yeah, because Elizabeth says you will never be able to make both of them good for anything. Take your choice, but you must be satisfied with only one. But she does try to do that, doesn't she? And obviously part of that is her personality, but also I think part of it is her naivety and her lack of society previous to that. What a stroke was this for poor Jane, with an exclamation mark in the middle of a sentence, which I know you like, who would willingly have gone through the world without believing that so much wickedness existed in the whole race of mankind, as was here collected in one individual. So, you know, she's a little bit naive, and it's not like today where we hear about horrible things in the world happening all the time. She wouldn't have those kind of influences in her life, so it would be easy for her to be more naive about human nature.
I feel sorry for her. And she's having to deal with her mother as well. Her mother, who says, I am determined never to speak of it again to anybody, and then contradicts herself in the next sentence. I told my sister Philip so the other day.
Yeah, I loved that part. That was one of my favourite parts, and I actually noted down that this is quite a serious chapter, and then Jane Austen has added this humour at the end with Mrs. Bennet saying some ridiculous things. Like, well, my comfort is, I am sure Jane will die of a broken heart, and then he will be sorry for what he has done. You know, she's just hilarious. Oh, and what you said, I told my sister Phillips so the other day. Then she goes on to say, I have inquired of everybody too, who is likely to know. So while she's saying that she's not going to talk about it, she's actually been going around talking about it to lots of people.
She seems like she'd be such a painful mother. And I really feel for Jane that she has to deal with her.
And because Jane is so gentle and kind, she even says, he is now perhaps sorry for what he has done, talking about Wickham, and anxious to re-establish a character. We must not make him desperate. You know, so even though she's just heard some pretty horrible things about Wickham and what he's done, she's still trying to be kind to him and about him, which is really lovely.
Yeah. I think it's hard for Lizzie to see her sister this way, and she dared not relate the other half of Mr. Darcy's letter, nor explain to her sister how sincerely she had been valued by his friend.
We also see a little bit of, I guess, development for Elizabeth as well in this chapter. So we learn quite a bit about Jane. Like, we already knew she was kind, but not quite the depth of it as we've, you know, see in this chapter. So there's more of it here, and her sort of naivety, but Elizabeth is almost chastising herself when she's talking about how she really took a dislike to Mr. Darcy. She says, and yet I meant to be uncommonly clever in taking so decided a dislike to him without any reason. And she goes on, and I think it's almost as if she is telling herself off for the way that she acted in the past, which is really nice to see that kind of reflectiveness in her character that we've not seen before.
I think that's one of the things about Lizzie. She grows as the novel continues. She's not static. We don't see Jane change much. I mean, at the end, she's like, I don't trust Miss Bingley, but apart from that, she hasn't really... For her, that's probably a huge character development, to be fair.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem like she goes on quite the same journey that Lizzie does.
No. And of course, part of that is because we don't see inside her head as much as we see of Elizabeth's. And of course, because Elizabeth's our protagonist. But yeah, I like the way that Jane Austen has created a character that does change and grow with her creation of Elizabeth. Which obviously, once again, we see in the title, Pride and Prejudice.
Yes.
It's interesting when they're talking about whether they should let people know about Mr. Wickham, and they're talking about him and Mr. Darcy. The general prejudice against Mr. Darcy is so violent, which is interesting because obviously within their family we knew that there was prejudice against Mr. Darcy, particularly because of the way that he treated Elizabeth at the ball. But for it to be across the whole of Meryton, I thought was quite interesting.
I think that's partly because what Wiccan had told people as soon as Mr. Darcy left the neighbourhood, though. Plus, there's the fact that Mr. Darcy is a little bit aloof.
And even though he is upper class and people should look up to him, they're still judging him.
I think probably also because there's such a huge contrast between him and Bingley. Were both of them a little bit aloof, I don't think they'd hate him quite so much, but because he's such a contrast to Mr. Bingley, it makes people think he's snooty.
Yeah.
And they dislike him.
Yeah, he stands out in relief to him. Yeah, I love, just going back to the end again with Mrs. Bennet and talking about Charlotte. Because obviously she's upset that one day Charlotte is going to have her house and her home. And she's just so funny. I really like the way that Jane Austen has put her in here and peppers the whole novel with all these funny bits. I should be ashamed of having one that was only entailed on me. She's really funny. And I've been studying Emma at the moment. And of course you've got Mr. Woodhouse and Miss Bates, and they are often the comic relief in the moments of tension as well. And I just really admire Jane Austen, the way that she's been able to do that, to have the different types of tension or the pain and then bring in the humour as a counterpoint to it. I really like that.
So we're not horribly depressed by what's happening to Lizzie and Jane because we've still got the funniness happening with her mother.
Yeah, and I think that's a reflection of life as well. Like, there are often things in life that are hard, but one way to get through life is to also see the funny side, or to look at the lightness, or go and look at a beautiful baby.
Babies always make things better so long as they're not like throwing up.
Or pooing on you.
Yeah.
Or doing those poos where it goes all the way up their back and into their hair. Those are amazing.
Ugh.
Yeah. Or pooing when you're giving them a bath.
Okay, so I think we've talked enough about poo. I'm going to keep this in.
And that is a summary of this chapter.
Do you want to give an update on your teaching of Emma?
My students are really enjoying it. We're doing the 2020 version of Emma, directed by Autumn de Wilde, which I think is marvellous. If you go and read the research that they did into it, it's fabulous what they've done. My girls are really enjoying it. We've finished watching the film today, and we've taken a couple of weeks to watch it because we began by talking about the setting of the film, and we have gone back over what we've watched at the beginning of each lesson so that they have a good understanding of what's happening, particularly because they need to understand why characters do particular things, because when you look at it with a 21st century eye, you think, why are they doing these things? And today the girls were so excited because we had the last little bit to watch, and they wanted to know what was going to happen with Mr. Knightley and Emma, and the squeals and the laughter. It was just absolutely wonderful. And yesterday when we watched the ball scene, oh my goodness, the girls there was all this and look at the way they're touching each other, and look at them looking at each other, and they were so excited and they really loved it. So I'm glad that I made the choice to do it, and I'm glad that you encouraged me to do it as well, because I think it's teaching them something outside of what they're used to, which is really lovely. And just seeing the girls enjoy class is a really nice feeling too.
That's very cool. Oh, and before we finish, I wanted to say hello to our listeners in the UK, particularly Barbara, Phil, Nicola and Penny. And if you want me to say hello to you, just send me a message on Twitter at Francis_Duncan, or you can reach me on my website at francisduncanwrites.com. Thank you for listening, and we wish you happy reading.